enforcing your constitutional rights. I stand for any questions.
Are there questions for Representative McNeely? Comments from the committee? Representative Kidwell?
Motion at the appropriate time.
Okay. Since that went that quickly, Mr. Sergeant at Arms, do we have anybody that wanted to speak on House Bill 49? Is the answer yes?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. If you would, do we have more than the one person on 49? Is that the?
Yes, please.
Okay. We got 4 people. Okay. How do we divide up? Well, are you going to be pro or con or?
I'm con.
Okay. If you'll just state your name and if you are with a group, if you would do that, and if you could try to hold your remarks preferably to a minute if we can get everybody in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jennifer Copeland. I represent the North Carolina Council of Churches, which also represents 18 denominations across North Carolina. You will have heard from us in the past about House Bill 49, the Protect Religious Places of Worship, where we were strongly opposed to it because we want to protect our school children. But what I want to say to you today is what we really want to talk about here is the gun lobby, and we want to talk about money. We want to talk about people who put their hand in the till of the gun lobby fund and then cause harm to the vulnerable people of North Carolina. I come from a tradition where God has some strong words to say about those who take money in the effort to create harm. And that's what I want us to think about. My friends here behind me will give you statistics, and they will tell you how the numbers show us that better gun laws protect our people. They'll tell you all of that. What I want you to do is search your heart. Search your heart. Figure out where your money's coming from and figure out who you want to protect. Who are the vulnerable people in North Carolina? The school children who are lined up behind me to tell you what they think about it. The victims of domestic violence who can't even get an extreme risk protection order in this state because we're so embedded with the gun lobby money. Think about that. Think about how your money is causing harm. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sergeant at Arms, do we have a pro speaker that signed up? And if so, who is next on the list? Has somebody got the list? Okay. Pardon? Okay. Reverend Mark Creech, please. If you want to go down there and, do we have a mic on that podium down there on the left or the right of it?
It doesn't work.
Okay.
It goes in the back with it. It doesn't work.
Members of the committee, I'm Reverend Mark Creech. I'm Executive Director of the Christian Action League. There's no question that church shootings are on the rise. In fact, 4 of the 23 fatal church shootings that have occurred since 1999 occurred just last year. Carl Chin, who's head of the nonprofit Faith-Based Security Network and author of the book Evil in the Sanctuary, rightly contends that there's never been a mass shooting at a faith-based property before 1963. So what we are experiencing is unprecedented in our nation's history. Fatal worship shootings haven't just happened at churches, but at a Sikh temple, a Jewish synagogue, a monastery, and an Amish school. Over in the Senate today, there were more than 10 pastors who were there to implore Senate members to change current law, a law that requires them not to have light security, but because of their inability to afford professional security in most cases, they are prohibited from having any armed security. The Christian Action League, Mr. Chairman, supports this legislation. It's important for churches who are housed with schools. They can't have their own armed security. They are kept from doing that. They are only asking that they be provided with just a carve-out that allows them to have security, their own security, when the school is not in session, just for their worship services.
Thank you, Reverend Creech. Next, we'll hear from Mitchell Pinsky, who I think is with Students Demand Action. I'm going to stop you 1 minute.
Okay, sounds good. I'm just gonna. All right, hi everyone. My name is Mitchell Pinsky, and I'm a volunteer with Students Demand Action. However, most importantly, Florida is my home, and Florida. My parents live in Florida. But regardless, around this time, 5 years ago, the massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School was occurring a mere 10 miles away from my house. Whereas y'all may have seen it censored, I saw uncensored students huddled in their classrooms as bullets ricocheted in the hallways only to pass over the bloody dead bodies of their peers. Unfortunately, this is what happens when we pass reckless gun laws. And if we pass these bills, there will only be more gun violence and more people. I'm done.
That's it.
Okay, just gonna finish. And more people who will die and have their lives impacted by senseless acts of gun violence. I highly urge you to vote no on HBs 49 and 50. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinsky. And our last speaker that we're going to have time for on HB 49 is Paul Vallone. Is that correct?
Correct. Hi, I'm Paul Vallone. I represent Grassroots North Carolina. And by the way, some like to call us the gun lobby, but we're actually an all-volunteer organization. We don't get a dime for what we do. What we saw yesterday was yet another example of a gun-free zone attracting a violent sociopath. We've seen it over and over again. Our goal is to shut down those gun-free zones and make sure people can protect themselves. In a most recent data from the Crime Prevention Research Center, since 1950, fully 94% of mass killings have been in places where guns are ostensibly prohibited. All we're trying to do here is shut down one of those gun-free zones and make sure that all churches are able to protect themselves. Churches that do not sponsor schools have been doing this since 1995. This is not news. Nor is it done on official school property, on the school board property. And in fact, in recent years, armed parishioners, not police, have stopped rampage killings in a number of churches, most recently Colorado Springs, Sutherland Springs, and White Settlement. We strongly recommend that you pass this bill.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We've got maybe a minute and a half further. Are there members of the committee that would like to offer comments or further questions before we proceed to take a vote? Okay, seeing none, with Representative Kidwell, were you going to offer a motion? You want me to suggest to you what you might move?
Well, I think
or you got it?
Feel free to correct me as necessary, Mr. Chairman. So, first of all, Mr. Chairman, as a representative who has not taken any gun lobby money, I move for a favorable report as amended of House Bill 49 with a referral to rules.
Rolled into a proposed committee substitute, I bet.
Thank you for that correction, Mr. Chairman.
And an unfavorable report to the original bill, I bet.
I like that. I'm going to go with that motion.
Okay, all right. You've heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The next bill before the committee is House Bill 50, Pistol Purchase Permit Repeal. Representative Chesser is the original sponsor. I believe there is an amendment. Representative Faircloth, you're recognized for the amendment.
We'll learn. Send forth an amendment on bill number 50 and ask that the amendment be read by the staff.
Staff want to go over the amendment? Or you want Representative Chesser to explain it, whichever? Okay, we'll let staff go over the amendment, and then Representative Chesser can make any comments he might wish to, or Representative Fairclough.
Karen McCraw, committee staff. The amendment would add a new misdemeanor crime of domestic violence to the statutes and would make that effective December 1, and it would apply to offenses committed on or after that date.
Representative Fairclough, anything more from you at this point, or we want to recognize Representative Chesser? Y'all let me know.
That's fine.
Okay, Representative Chesser, have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee here. This bill strictly just strikes existing permitting requirements. And thank you to Representative Green for coming alongside me on this and pointing out a potential loophole that we're going to go ahead and take the opportunity to close right now before it ever becomes an issue, which is the domestic violence communication between our state statute and the federal NICS system.
Okay. For sake of clear understanding, Ms. McCraw, can I ask you to explain the effect of what we're doing as it interrelates with the NICS registration system? Or, Ms. Seitz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Seitz, Legislative Analysis. Federal law prohibits somebody who has a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, that's what they call it, from obtaining a firearm. North Carolina currently does not have a crime that specifically meets those requirements. So this would create an actual misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. Currently under North Carolina law, domestic violence crimes are charged under a variety of different crimes, some of which could potentially meet that level if it showed that it was a domestic violence, but we don't have a specific one. So this would hopefully create a crime that going forward, if persons commit a misdemeanor assault that is a domestic violence relationship could be convicted of, that we believe, because we can't speak for the federal government, that the federal government would recognize as a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence under their law and would therefore prohibit the person who does a NICS background check from purchasing a firearm.
Questions or comments from members of the committee on House Bill 50? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the speaker? Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to talk to you just for a second. I remember the process when I first got my first handgun and going through the pistol permit process, and I've had numerous discussions with law enforcement in my area regarding stolen guns and things of that nature coming into our schools and different things there. I wanted to know if you'd be interested or would you be willing to consider a further amendment as this bill progresses along to require some type of mandatory reporting of stolen handguns.
I think that'd be a separate issue, but I'd love to talk to you about it.
Thank you. We have that discussion later on.
Further questions or comments from the committee? Representative Kidwell, were you seeking recognition?
No, sir.
Okay, I didn't. You were going sort of like that, but. Okay, let's try some more public comment. The first person that has signed up according to this list that I'm going to recognize on House Bill 50 is Andy Stevens with, I think, Gun Owners of America. Mr. Stevens.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Andy Stevens, and I am the North Carolina State Director for Gun Owners of America. It is well past time to correct two wrongs that have existed here in North Carolina for many years. Of course, I'm talking about repeal of the 103-year-old Jim Crow-era pistol purchase permit. I'm also talking about the statute that exempts certain churches from allowing their petitioners to attend their services with a weapon. Gun Owners of America fully supports the repeal of the pistol purchase permit system and fixing the church carry loophole, and encourage you to move these two bills forward to the chamber floor for passage. However, we have just heard consideration of an amendment that I can state with certainty that Gun Owners of America will object to most vociferously. And as a representative also of Grassroots North Carolina, after consulting with the president of Grassroots North Carolina, we will also consider such an amendment as unfavorably and and act accordingly on evaluations for gun rights voting in the state Senate and the legislature. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Our next speaker is Marcus Buss with the North Carolina Black Alliance.
Members of the committee, my name is Marcus Bass. I serve as Deputy Director of the North Carolina Black Alliance, and we strongly oppose House Bill 50. The pistol purchase permitting system is not duplicative or discriminatory. In fact, it has been proven to prevent homicides and suicides. In several states, and including North Carolina, we see these laws preventing the gun violence that we've heard about today. Assumptions regarding racial impact of the pistol purchase permit without true research cannot and should not be used as credible reasons to support HB 50. However, Black, non-Hispanic North Carolinians comprised 22% of the 2018 North Carolina population, but, however, they experienced 67.1% of the firearm homicide deaths. Among North Carolina children and youth, the 2018 firearms homicide rate was highest among Black children ages 0 through 19 and was nearly 10 times the rate among white children. This violence is a result of societal and systemic factors which are compounded by firearms that are often trafficked in most impacted neighborhoods. In this case, we believe the state's current pistol purchasing permit helps to prevent the diversion of illegal firearms into communities most suffering from gun violence. We ask that you do not pass House Bill 50.
Thank you, sir. And it's Bass, not Buss. I'm sorry, I misread the sheet here. Our next speaker on House Bill 50, and I may mess up the last name on this, is Becky Siestas. And you are with NCGV. If you could tell us what that is.
Where would you like me to go? Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Becky Kirstas. I'm the Executive Director of North Carolinians Against Gun Violence. We strongly oppose House Bill 50. Permit to purchase laws save lives by preventing homicides, suicides, mass shootings, and domestic violence. It is not duplicative. We have to examine the good moral character provision to ensure that people of color are not being discriminated against and fix that provision instead of doing away with the permitting system altogether that have been proven to prevent homicides, which disproportionately impacts people of color in North Carolina. The president of the Sheriff's Association, Sheriff Blackwood, now supports the pistol purchase permitting system. He listened to his constituents and experts about the importance of the permitting system and now supports it. Please vote to save lives by voting no on House Bill 50. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our final speaker that we're going to be able to take on House Bill 50 is Gerald Givens, I believe, with the NAACP.
Thank you. I'm Gerald Givens, president of the Raleigh Apex NAACP. I served 20 years in the United States Air Force. I'm 9mm qualified, M4 qualified, M16 qualified. I've lost 7 family members to gun violence. My grandfather, my uncle, my brother, and 4 cousins. I just recently lost my 2-year-old cousin, Israel, in October, who got access to his father's firearm. To those who are making this ridiculous argument about this being a Jim Crow law, Jim Crow is part of the U.S. Constitution. It's part of the North Carolina Constitution. It's a silly argument. Let's move forward and make sure that we keep our community safe. If we can't be safe in America, we can't be free.
Thank you, Mr. Givens. Representative Faircloth has put forth the amendment. You've heard the amendment discussed. Are there further comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, those in favor of adoption of the amendment signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The bill is now on as amended for discussion. Is there a motion to approve the bill? Let's see. The motion, is there a motion for a favorable report to the bill as amended, rolled into a proposed committee substitute with a favorable report to the committee substitute and an unfavorable report to the original bill with re-referral to House rules? Representative Kidwell so moves. Further discussion or debate? Seeing none, those in favor of the adoption of that motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, the motion is adopted. The final bill on the agenda for today is House Bill 17, elect the State Board of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction as State Board of Education Chair. Representative Torbett is going to present the bill. And is there a PCS? No. There is a PCS. There's a PCS on this that you should have access to. It was sent out last night before the timeline. Without objection, the PCS is before the committee.
Like I said many years ago, this isn't my dog, but I'm feeding it and walking it today. So,
And I'm watching you.
yeah, I'm presenting this on behalf of Chairman Blackwell. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill is it is a pretty simple bill. Parents throughout North Carolina that have students in their education system, when talking to me, and I'm sure when talking to you, they often ask, why can't the superintendent of public instruction do something about this, that, or the other? And then I have to explain to them the diligence and responsibilities that are separated in education, and they just can't believe that an elected person like the superintendent of public instruction isn't the one that's in charge of our education system as being elected by the people of North Carolina, just like we are. And I tend to agree with them, and so does Chairman Blackwell. So what this bill would do, it would amend the North Carolina Constitution to elect members of the State Board of Education and then make the superintendent of public instruction the chair of the State Board of Education. So that would remove any concern over who's responsible for what, and also pinned off future litigations, just like we had some years back when there was disruption between who had the right to do this or who had the legislative power to enact that, and it cost the taxpayers of North Carolina a tremendous amount of money. We had two like state groups arguing with each other over that. So this would take care of that and actually just get out of the picture. It also, since it's going to be an elected by district, it would, of course, remove any veto requirement from the State Board education districts when General Assembly defines what those districts might be. Short of that's pretty much it. Am I missing a key ingredient here? What am I missing?
Well, let's see if the committee can find one.
Okay.
Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Representative Zinger.
I'd make a motion at the appropriate time.
Okay. All right. Seeing no questions or comments, this would appear to be the appropriate time. You want to do your own motion, and I'll watch what you say.
I make a motion for a favorable report on the PCS for House Bill 17 and a referral to Rules, Calendar, and Operations of the House.
And unfavorable to the original bill, I bet. Okay, you've heard the motion. Further discussion or comments? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the committee meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this illustrious Judiciary Committee.